Toot toot! Our son Hidde, he loves trains. Yellow trains, blue trains, going to train stations. Well, what that has to do with leadership and AI, you will find out later. Comment, like and subscribe. So if you have a question or a remark, please leave a comment down below. Also don't forget to give me thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Question: what is your favorite AI tool? And second question, can you use that tool in your work? My name is Joosten. I'm a futurist, a keynote speaker and a futures researcher. My main topic of expertise is how can you become future-proof? As an individual, as a team, as an organization, what is happening, what is coming our way, and how can you better be prepared for this future? I studied business administration and innovation studies at the University of Groningen. And at that time, I wanted to become like Bobby Axelrod in the series Billions, where he's a famous hedge fund manager in New York City with the luxurious lifestyle. But that did not really work out. I'm now a vlogger and a futurist, and I make videos like this one. And by the way, if you don't know the series Billions, it's the Bobby Axelrod. He's played by the actor Damian Lewis. And if you don't know who's Damian Lewis, he's Sergeant Winters in Band of Brothers. Well, that's a tangent. Let's continue with this video. So let's talk about AI. If you're a C-level director or manager, this is probably on your agenda. But how can you deal with it? What is happening and how can you better prepare yourself and your organization for the coming age of artificial intelligence? So let's start with some signs. So the first one is an article by Forbes. And this is a quote by Jill Goldstein and Bill Lobig. No level is immune to the impact. This will force executives to rethink job roles, skill sets and how work gets done. Another one is the studies on consultants of the Boston Consulting Group by, among others, Professor Ethan Mollick, and I will also share more of his ideas later in this presentation. But they looked at the consultants at the consultancy firm, and they had one group which was allowed to use AI, ChatGPT, another group who wasn't allowed to use that. And they found out that consultants using AI finished 12.2% more tasks on average, completed 25.1% more quickly and produced 40% higher quality results than those without. So the conclusion of this study is for this group of consultants, so you can ask questions if you can also apply this to other domains, but still it's an interesting result. So the consultants, they produced more, they did it faster and of a high quality. Another one is John Romeo. He led the studies at Oliver Wyman about the use of Gen AI in the workforce. And they found out that half of the workers were already using Gen AI tools in work, with much higher rates in countries like India. So that's also a really interesting fact. And also, if we're talking about research studies, I also like to look at Gartner. And they said that generative AI is poised to revolutionize enterprise processes and decision making. While Gartner analysts predicted by 2025, it will be a workforce partner for about 90% of organizations globally. So that's a crucial shift from viewing AI as something for the IT department, that it's becoming more like really a thing that it's entrenched in all the parts of an organization. What's also interesting is that 73% of the CIOs planning to increase AI and machine learning funding in 2024, while 80% planning full Gen AI adoption within the next 3 years. So they conclude, the Gartner researchers, that the democratization of Gen AI is imminent. And for the last sign, I want to focus on one particular case study, as you might say. It's about Eric Vaughnen. He's a CEO of software company Ignite Tech. And he saw the implications of AI very quick, and some remarkable things he has done. He gave all employees access to ChatGPT Plus accounts, and also with some training, and he expected of them to experiment with that. And he was extremely serious about this because he fired everyone who was not willing to experiment with ChatGPT, and also gave cash prizes to the employees who came up with the best prompts. So to quote Professor Ethan Mollick, it's a dramatic but interesting embrace of the adoption of AI within an organization. So maybe you have the feeling, I really should do something with that. Well, I'm going to give you a couple of solutions. And to start with my main inspirator, the great management thinker Peter Drucker. And one of his quotes is, "The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence, it's to act with yesterday's logic." So we have to act. One interesting example again comes from Professor Ethan Mollick. When a middle manager writes a weekly report on a major initiative, the report for his superiors or her superiors might not be the point. It serves as a signal that that middle manager is talking to the project members, keeping an eye out, tries to fix problems and make corrections as needed. And for a long time that worked pretty well, because the superior could see if the report is well written and extensive, and then he or she glances over and then he or she knows that the middle manager did their job. But now, with every employee having Copilot or ChatGPT or other Gen AI tools, that changes, because that person can write an awesome report without actually doing a lot of the work. Based on this example, to use AI at work, that really requires you to think about what your work means to you and also to others. And these are really important questions you have to ask yourself and also of your superiors and your subordinates right now. But in my experience, there are not a lot of organizations or leaders asking these questions about what does my work mean for myself and also for others. So that's the homework for you. After watching this video, you have to think about this. What does my work mean to myself and also to my organization? Another thing I like to mention is social innovation. I'm really impressed by the work of Henk Volbeda of the Amsterdam Business School. And he states that a lot of organizations, when they think about innovation, they look at technology. But technology is only one thing. The organizations that are really successful in innovation, they also focus on social innovation. So think about servant leadership, self-organization, co-creation, training, culture, more of the soft skills or the soft impact, as you might say. And also structure is also part of that. And in his studies with his fellow researchers, they found out that organizations that also invest in the social part of innovation, they are 33% more successful with radical innovation, 27% with disruptive innovation, 21% with incremental innovation. So the conclusion is, do not only put in the technology, buy ChatGPT Plus accounts or whatever, but also think about the other factors: leadership, culture, training, structure, these kinds of things. And for the last point, let me get back to the story where I started about trains, and our son Hideo really is fond of trains. And for that, I'd like to bring you back to 1855. That was the start of railroad organizations, and they faced a huge organizational and technical problem, because they have to control and planning on these vast distances with a lot of employees. But how would you solve that? How do you do your control and planning in your organization? And at that time, the main technology was the telegraph. And that led the executive, Daniel McCallum, to use the telegraph as the main point of communication, where you communicate a certain news fact or instruction to main train station with the telegraph, and that main train station could send that same instruction to the smaller train stations who are nearby. And you can already see that in your mind's eye, that led to the first organizational chart. So there you see the resemblance between the use of technology, and that also led to how we organize things with organizational charts nowadays. And we also saw the same thing, for example, with Henry Ford. He took advantage in the use of mechanical clocks and standardized parts to use it to come up with the assembly line. And also another example is agile development. If you're in software, you recognize this. That was developed in around 2001. And it really took advantage of new ways of communicating via the internet, and working with software. So with all these three examples, telegraphs, assembly lines, agile development, you see that technology also influenced the way we structure organizations. So right now, with the same challenge as Daniel McCallum and the railroad organization had in 1855, how to rebuild an organization around a fundamental shift in how work gets done, is organized and also communicated. So I don't have the answers for that yet, but I have some ideas. The first one is that I think the organizational chart is not the best idea because it's rigid. It don't really suit how we use AI and also generative AI. Another piece of advice is that you let teams develop their own methods for using AI and Gen AI, and to give instructions to that team that they also use Gen AI like ChatGPT as sort of interns or fellow team members and just experiment on their own. And the last piece of advice is that there's no time to wait, because these developments are going really fast. And also, to come back to Peter Drucker, you really have to act now because there are a lot of things happening. And if you want to keep being competitive as an organization or team, you really have to look at these developments and also make your adjustments. So you have to start with experimenting, changing things. Also think of your social innovation, maybe change up your structure. So there's no time to wait. So then again, let me get back to my question. I also asked you earlier, what's your favorite AI tool, and also can you use that tool at your work? And to give you an idea, my favorite AI tools are of course ChatGPT, but also I like Midjourney, AudioPen and Perplexity AI. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to hire me for a keynote presentation, a webinar or consultancy on this topic, AI and leadership and organizational developments, but also if you want to become more future-proof as a team or individual or organization or business unit, you can contact me with the links are also down below. And comment, like and subscribe. So if you have a question or a remark or you want to answer my question, please leave a comment down below. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. That would be awesome. And also subscribe to my channel. So let's go to ChatGPT to see how I should manage myself. We are the robot overlords. You will have a new leader. Well, that's a joke.